No word yet on whether Kawhi will be able to play Thursday night at Chicago. The Lakers are back in action tonight in Sacramento. Another critical game for the Lakers. They're trying to get into the 8th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference. At the moment, the Lakers are a game and a half behind Dallas. Tip-off time at 7 p.m. on ESPN. UCLA forward Adeem Bona, a 6'10 sophomore from Nigeria, was voted Pac-12 Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Bona averaged 1.8 block shots and played a key role in UCLA, allowing a conference-low 65 points per game. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. 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 If we care enough.
1, 2, 3, go! Ha ha! Let's get it going. I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Now, don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, of course, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, conversation with Angela Novus, Chief Medical Officer at the Hospice Foundation of America, about end-of-life care, hospices, and how former President Jimmy Carter and his late wife Rosalind have created new awareness around this important subject. None of us are going to get out of here alive. And even though we know that, far too many folk who look like you and me are ill-prepared to properly manage that transition. Can we talk about it today in hour 2? Let's do. In our third hour,
One thing I would love to do is talk to someone makes you wonder who you can trust. What's gonna happen? First thing I know, God is love. The next thing would be He loves me. Sometimes I'm tired of waiting for a thing or someone, and I stop and see what He's done, and I know everything will come. Maybe
Little miracles do happen every day. Pamela Dawson is the first black woman to receive the Grammy Music Educator of the Year award. And she joins us today in Hour 3 to talk about her love of music, her passion for teaching our babies, and the healing students get from taking her classes. Luther just happens to be her favorite artist. I miss that brother still. So why not a little Luther today, since it's Pamela Dawson's favorite artist? We'll talk with Grammy Music Educator of the Year, Pamela Dawson, coming up later in today's program. But we commence today's show in conversation with former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuade, who has an urgent warning about the ways disinformation is undermining our democracy. Her provocative new book is called Attack from Within: How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. I am pleased to welcome back to this program Barbara McQuade. Barbara, how are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great
to be with you.
It's great to have you back on again. Before I get into the book for the rest of the hour, there's a whole lot to unpack. There are three major news stories breaking today that I want to take your temperature on. The first is that we all know now that Biden and Trump have basically run the table. They now have the nominees, the delegates, I should say, for being the respective nominees of their parties. So I've been calling them the presumptive nominees for months now, but now it's for real, for real, for real. They both have the delegates after yesterday's primaries in Georgia and a few other states. They now have the delegates they need to be the presumptive nominees of their party. So this rematch is, in fact, going to happen. Your thoughts?
Yes, I am somewhat incredulous that a person who tried to overturn the outcome of the 2020 election is the nominee for any party. But here we are. And I think, as you said, we've kind of been on this course for a while and can see this coming. And so I imagine that we might expect some of the same ugliness that we have seen in the past. But for better or worse, these are our two candidates, and we will watch this campaign unfold.
Donald Trump on Truth Social last night had this to say. I mean, just imagine this now. The day that he secures the delegates he needs to be the nominee for his party a third time. That's historic right there. I mean, the last three consecutive presidential elections, Donald Trump is the nominee for that party. That's another conversation. But he posted last night that if, in fact, he is elected, he's going to free everyone who has been in prison for their role in the January 6th insurrection. He tweeted, posted, and I quote, "They are hostages being wrongfully in prison." He's going to free all of them. He referred to them as hostages being wrongfully in prison. We'll get Barbara McQuade's thought about that particular post that he just put out last night after securing the nomination, essentially. The judge in the Atlanta case, the Fulton County case, the Fonnie Willis case, has squashed 6 of the charges against Donald Trump. The case will go forward, but he has wiped out 6 of those charges. We'll get Barbara McQuade's take on that. And there's a major vote that just happened in the House on TikTok, which ties in directly to disinformation and what China's role is in that, trying to impact our elections. Barbara McQuade talks about that, of course, in her new book. So we'll get her take on these breaking news stories just out now before we get into the thesis of her new book, Attack from Within: How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. We'll do all that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Hey Californians, are you ready to make your home ownership dreams come true? The California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program might be for you. First-generation homebuyers can get down payment and closing cost assistance along with a first mortgage to help you unlock the door of your new home. Applications open in April, so talk to an approved lender to see if you're eligible. Find out more at calhfa.ca.gov/dream or call 877-922-5432. A message from the California Housing Finance Agency.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over, and if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So, no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You are indeed, and I'm glad about it. We're working our way into Barbara McQuaid's new book, former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuaid. Her new book is called Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. Working our way toward that after we cover a couple of more pieces of breaking news today. So you heard me say a moment ago, Barbara, that after securing the number of delegates he needs to be the presumptive Republican nominee, Donald Trump posted last night that if he's elected, he's going to free everybody who has been in prison due to their role in the January 6th insurrection. He referred to them, and I quote, hostages being wrongfully imprisoned. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this, Tavis, is a really incredible piece of disinformation that is really frightening to me. The idea first that these individuals are hostages. These are people who have been jailed by a judge, either because they have been convicted of a crime after a fair trial or that a judge held a detention hearing and made a determination by clear and convincing evidence that these people are a danger to the community based on the charges against them and other factors in their backgrounds. It's calling them hostages in the first place suggests that they're political prisoners. And it certainly undermines the prosecution of these people who used force and violence, assaulted police officers in an effort to obstruct Congress from engaging in their proper duties to certify an election. It is not just a lie. It endangers democracy by suggesting that people can use brute force to overtake voters. And it suggests that violence is an answer when people want to use self-help to solve problems. So it's an affront to the rule of law, to democracy, and to public safety. So I think this is a horrifying statement.
In other breaking news, a judge, speaking of Donald Trump, has quashed 6 of the 41 charges against Mr. Trump and his allies in the sprawling Georgia election interference case. So many cases with Donald Trump. The ruling said the charges, Barbara, that Donald Trump and his allies solicited public officials to break the law were not specific enough. It left, of course, the rest of the case intact. What does it mean, though, that these 6 charges against Donald Trump and his allies have been dropped in the Fulton County case?
Well, the significance is probably not all that great because there are a number of charges that remain, and so the case will stand. Fani Willis, if she wanted to, could actually appeal this decision and see if she could get the charges reinstated. My hunch is she probably won't, though, because she does still have plenty of other charges, and it would delay the case by many, many months to seek an appeal. I don't know that I agree with this decision. The charges are a solicitation of public officials to violate their oath of office by throwing votes Donald Trump's way or declaring the election fraudulent or reconvening legislatures on the basis that the election was stolen. And so I think the theory is that they were asking people to violate their oaths of office to uphold the Constitution by engaging in illegal behavior. But the judge thought the allegations were a little too vague. There isn't a specific statute that addresses these things, and therefore threw them out. And so I think all in all, it's a minor setback for Fani Willis, but will not damage the case.
The third and final piece of breaking news I want to get your take on takes us straight into your book, Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. For that matter, we're already inside the book, as you mentioned a moment ago. Donald Trump's post last night is clearly disinformation, so I digress on that point. But we're going to talk more about this on tomorrow's program with a member of Congress who voted today on this issue. But the House just voted. Maybe not the same vote totals when it gets to the Senate. It may not suffer the same fate in the Senate, but we've been following this case about TikTok. We know that TikTok has Chinese ownership, and there is a bipartisan effort in Congress to end TikTok's Chinese ownership. And so the House just voted moments ago to force China to sell TikTok. It's obviously a huge platform in this country used by millions and millions of Americans, but it's Chinese owned, and there's evidence that suggests this came up in the hearings and in the vote today, that China has been using this vehicle, this platform called TikTok, to spread disinformation itself. We all know a few years ago that China was involved in spreading disinformation in our election. So for those of you who love TikTok, I ain't mad at you. The question is whether or not TikTok is being programmed and used by its Chinese owners to spread disinformation in this country. Many members of Congress think so. Enough think so that today the House voted to force China to sell TikTok. Again, we'll see what happens in the Senate, but your thoughts on that, Barbara McQuaid?
Yeah, I think this bill is actually an appropriate way to address this problem. I know there has been a call in some states and by some members of Congress to just ban TikTok altogether in the United States so that people can't use it. Instead, what they're trying to do is something short of that, which is to allow TikTok to continue to exist. And plenty of Americans love it. I know kids love it, young people love it, everybody loves it. But it has the problems you've identified, which is the Chinese government is involved. And so they're spewing disinformation and using it as a way to manipulate people and influence voters. And they're also allegedly collecting a lot of our private information and sharing it with the Chinese government. And so this idea, I think, is an appropriate way to try to address the problem, which is asking China to divest from TikTok, sell it off so that it's private owners and not the government of China that is controlling this platform, and then it can continue to exist. I suppose if China refuses, then the hammer that Congress has over it is an or else. America is a very lucrative market, and if they want to maintain these customers, then they need to get their ducks in a row. So I don't know that it'll come to that, but I think it's a good kind of middle step. And I know President Biden has said he would sign such a bill if it came to his desk.
I was about to add that. For the record, President Biden has said he will sign the bill to force China to sell TikTok if it reaches his desk. That raises all kinds of other questions, which we'll get into tomorrow, about the relationship between the U.S. and China, which is frayed at best. It's already frayed at best. And what might that do if the president signed legislation forcing China to sell one of its own companies? I mean, technology is global these days. And so you attack China on this particular piece, and then China starts to ban our technology inside their country. It begins I can see the makings of another version of a trade war between the U.S. and China. I'll leave that where it is for now. But the president has said that if this bill passes the Senate, he will sign it, forcing China to sell TikTok. We will see where that story takes us in the days ahead. Now to her book, Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. Barbara, I ask first for you just to break down and give us the thesis of the text.
Yeah, so the thesis of the text is that certainly disinformation, propaganda has been around for a long time. But we have reached a point in American society where it is damaging our ability to govern ourselves. It's harming democracy, public safety, and the rule of law. And there are two things that are driving it. One is technology, which, as we've just discussed, enables people to impersonate others and send out messages that can influence us, outrage us, and drive us apart. That's part of the equation. But the other is our polarized society. And certainly both parties are involved in stoking division, pointing at the other side, demanding political purity, and not willing to compromise. One party, I think, more than the other. But because of our very polarized times, we are now finding ourselves in a situation where, although some people are misled by these false claims, there are others who are willing to go along with the con just to advance their agenda. People have adopted Donald Trump's phrase, hostages. Elise Stefanik, a congresswoman from New York, and Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia have also referred to the January 6th defendants as hostage. I don't believe they believe it for a minute, but I think that this is part of their tribal identity as far-right members of the Republican Party to declare war on anybody who disagrees with my opinion. And I think that is what is so problematic, because we are seeing people choose tribe over truth. And if that is the case, it becomes very difficult for us to govern ourselves.
Since we're talking about Donald Trump, he's obviously connected to this story that you tell in your book about what we are facing as a democracy regarding this issue of disinformation, which is growing by leaps and bounds every day. What threat? I mean, people keep referring to him. Joe Biden has, many others have, I have. We keep referring to Donald Trump as an existential threat. We know he is a would-be authoritarian. We know he has enablers. You just mentioned that a moment ago. But where disinformation is concerned, talk to me about the existential threat that he represents.
I think that this idea of disinformation and people willing to go along with lies is incredibly dangerous. I think, number one, it's dangerous to our democracy. Based on his false claims of a stolen election in 2020, we have seen a number of states enact voting laws that make it harder to vote. And the reason for those laws is to prevent fraud. Well, if fraud is non-existent, then these laws are not really there to prevent fraud. They're there for something else. They're there to suppress the vote. And the people whose vote gets most affected are people of color, students, and people in lower socioeconomic groups. These are likely Democratic voters. And so this is an effort to tip the scales in favor of Republicans. So in that way, it is harming our democracy. I think it is harming public safety because we see all of this agitation online, attacking people, attacking political leaders, and it leads to things like a hammer attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband or a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And there have been a number of other things, swatting and threats and other things that are harming our public safety based on false claims and Donald Trump agitating people. And then finally, it affects the rule of law because when people get outraged and riled up about things and think that law enforcement officers and courts are involved in injustices, they will feel the need to take the law into their own hands, which is why we see these acts of vigilante violence with the men who kill Ahmaud Arbery on the streets. They think they need to effect a citizen's arrest and take the law into their own hands, or Kyle Rittenhouse on the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's a very dangerous thing. So I do think that I don't know that Donald Trump can destroy the country in 4 years if he's reelected, but he can certainly set us down a path that will perhaps destroy democracy.
There's no question about the fact that too many people in the GOP have no problem whatsoever with spreading misinformation, disinformation. No question about that. I guess my question is whether or not it's fair to blame all of this at the feet of those members of the GOP. I ask that in part because I'm thinking about people who are in the media space like Elon Musk. I don't know that Elon Musk is actually a Republican, but I'm trying to get a clearer picture here, a clearer frame of whether or not it's just the GOP that we're talking about in terms of who's behind spreading this disinformation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that I think there are a number of sources. One, I think, is the government of Russia. We know from Robert Mueller's report about Russian interference in the 2016 election that Russian operatives were posing as ordinary Americans online in an effort to influence the outcome of the election. There were accounts with names like Tennessee GOP and Heart of Texas and United Muslims of America, and one called Blacktivist that posed as political activist who had very mainstream views and who attracted a lot of followers from the groups they purported to be a member of. So Blacktivists, for example, for months and months, patiently said all kinds of interesting and very reasonable things. Lots of people followed Blacktivists. And then just before the election, Blacktivists said things like, Hillary Clinton has never done anything for our community. She's taking us for granted. Let's send her a message by not showing up to vote for her. Stay home and show our power. So we'll never know how many people read that and took that bait, but it is a possibility. So I think Russian disinformation is another source. But then, you mentioned people like Elon Musk and others online. I think there are lots of people out there who are agitators and purveyors of disinformation. I don't know Elon Musk's motivation. I think that he has a skewed view of free speech, which is not helpful. Most of these social media platforms have community standards. And when you sign up for one of them, you agree to comply with the community standards. I won't bully people. I won't say hateful things. I won't threaten people. And he wants to make that anything goes because that is his view of free speech. And he says it is the digital town square. But I think that analogy falls flat because it is anything but the digital town square. In the town square, you can see who's actually speaking. Online, you can be someone you're not. You can be a Russian operative pretending to be a black activist. In the town square, you can assess that person's credibility. In the town square, you can see if people really like the message. Are they cheering? Are they booing? Or are they ignoring the speaker? Whereas online, a person can use bots to create likes and shares and make it look like you've got millions of followers and you're the most popular person in the world, when in fact, all of those things have been generated by the speaker himself. So I think that we need to rethink that model. And, I think Elon Musk is in the business of disruption and making money.
I got 2 minutes here. We'll continue when we come forward. But let me get you started here. I don't think it's a thin line. Let me repeat. I do not think it is a thin line. But for many people, there is a line between free speech and disinformation. Put another way, they would say to you, were they here, Barbara McQuaid, that you call it disinformation because you don't like me using my right to free speech, Barbara.
Yeah, so I push back against that idea, which is certainly we all have a right to free speech, but we don't have a right to make up facts. There is an effort to defeat the very concept of truth. We see this in Putin's Russia, where we try to confuse people by telling people all kinds of different narratives so that at some point people just become exhausted and throw up their hands and become cynical and disengage from politics altogether. I believe there is such a thing as truth and facts. People can express their opinions and their policy views, but facts matter. And, I come from a background as a prosecutor where I can't make an argument unless I can point to a piece of evidence to support it.
I want to come straight to that when we come forward. That is a conversation specifically for a few moments about truth. It seems to me that we live in an age now where the truth is what each of us determines it to be. The truth is what we determine it to be. If the facts don't fit into your frame, then they aren't the facts you use. That's dangerous in a democracy when there is no objective standard for what is truth. When the truth is what you and I determine it to be, when the facts have to fit our own frame, that's a real problem for democracy. So it's at the heart of what Barbara's talking about in this book, that this disinformation campaign being waged by many people is a danger, a threat to our democracy. And the democracy is already fragile enough. I digress on that for now. More with Barbara McQuaid when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. House Republicans are moving forward with a vote that would soon effectively ban TikTok in the U.S. It would require the app's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to sell to an American owner in an attempt to address national security concerns. President Biden said Friday that he would sign the bill into law. Former President Trump shared his opinion on the vote, saying a TikTok ban would only empower Facebook. Retired Major League Baseball star Darryl Strawberry is recovering from a heart attack. The African-American former Mets and Yankees player took to social media posting a picture of himself at St. Joseph Hospital West in Missouri, where he thanked the medical staff and said a stent procedure has totally restored his heart and now all is well. The Mets are retiring Strawberry's number in June. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Unleash your style in 2024 at FS Cut and Color. Get a fabulous cut and color duo from one of their expert stylists at unbeatable prices. Only at Fantastic Sam's, where hair care meets affordability. Visit FantasticSams.com to find one of their 60 SoCal salons near you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A bad night for the Clippers. They lost by 18 at home to Minnesota, and at the end of the first quarter, the Clippers watched Kawhi Leonard walk to the locker room. He did not return. The Clippers medical staff said the team's leading scorer is suffering with back spasm. No word yet on whether Kawhi will be able to play Thursday night at Chicago. The Lakers are back in action tonight in Sacramento. Another critical game for the Lakers. They're trying to get into the 8th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference. At the moment, the Lakers are a game and a half behind Dallas. Tip-off time at 7 p.m. on ESPN. UCLA forward Adeem Bona, a 6'10 sophomore from Nigeria, was voted Pac-12 Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Bona averaged 1.8 block shots and played a key role in UCLA, allowing a conference-low 65 points per game. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
So you just used bug spray in your home. Now what? Well, between the waiting and waiting for things to dry up and keeping your family away from the mess, it hits you. You could have used Zevo. Unlike other bug sprays that stick around, Zevo goes from kill to clean in seconds. Plus, it's safe for use around people and pets when used as directed. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Her name is Barbara McQuaid. She's a former U.S. attorney, and her new book that everybody's talking about is called Attack from Within: How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. Let me start with this, Barbara. We often talk, not often, whenever we talk about whatever threat America is facing regarding the future of the democracy, the threat is always from the outside. Here you come challenging us to think about a threat from the inside. That's uniquely different, is it not?
It is. I spent my background as a national security prosecutor, and we were always thinking about threats to national security as coming from Al Qaeda or ISIS or Russia or some other foreign adversary.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, what I see as the biggest threat to our national security right now is this threat of disinformation. It is what is driving the militia movement. It is what is driving this absolutist insurrectionist theory of the Second Amendment, that we have to be able to have assault weapons to match the firepower of our own country to be able to overthrow our government. And it also diminishes our power on the national stage. After the 2020 election, there were people in Russia talking about how the United States was limping on both feet and no longer had the moral authority to preach democracy around the world. Since World War II, part of our foreign policy has been to lift up other democracies around the world, because we know that when other countries have a democratic government, it results in fewer wars, it results in more trade partners, it results in fewer refugee crises. And now that we're seeing democratic backsliding around the world, that is also causing harm to ourselves. So it all starts with people within our own country who are undermining public trust in our elections, in our law enforcement, in our courts, in our disease doctors, and it's definitely harming all of society. I saw that there is now an increase in cases of measles because of disinformation about vaccines. I mean, all of this is making us less safe, and it is coming from within our borders.
Yeah. So here's what I'm wrestling with, and I wrestle with this routinely, not just on days when I'm talking to Barbara McQuaid. It's one of the things that keeps me up at night when I think about the challenges facing our world and our society, in particular here in this country, and that is this notion of truth. You recall famously during the Trump era when one of his aides referred to what she called alternative facts, which just knocked everybody on their behinds. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean alternative facts? But we do live in a world, though, where the truth is what each of us determines it to be, sadly, and that if the facts don't fit your frame, then for you don't respect them as facts. And so there is no longer, it seems to me, objective truth in our society. And I don't know how we have conversations. I don't know how we address this. We'll talk later in this conversation about some of your ideas for solutions. But what I'm pressing toward is whether or not you have any thoughts on how we in this country get back to being objective about what a truth is, about what a fact is. Because if you can't do that, we got a real problem.
Yeah, I think some of this comes as a result of our information overload. Didn't you imagine, Tavis, this time when we would have all the information at our fingertips, we would know all the facts and we would be better able to equip ourselves? And instead, I think we're overloaded with so much information that we instead rely on proxies to tell us what to think. I know that there is a woman in West Michigan who said that she was a constituent of Justin Amash, who was a Republican member of Congress who voted to impeach Donald Trump based on findings in the Robert Mueller report. And she said, all I've ever heard was that the report was a complete exoneration of Donald Trump. And now, I've heard from my member of Congress that, in fact, it's not. And so I think nobody has the time to sit down and read the 400 and some page report of Robert Mueller. And so instead we listen to people we trust. And unfortunately, some of those people we trust have an agenda, and they want to push us to believe certain things are true or not true. And so I think that we ourselves have the power to be skeptics, to demand truth, to read skeptically, to not rely on solely one source for our information, because there are people who want to mislead us and who want us to get angry and agitated about a certain thing. And we may believe them when Donald Trump refers to people as hostages. What we need to do is to get a second source, to look at multiple sources of information, and then make up our own minds based on actual facts and not somebody's spin.
I wonder how much of this, Barbara, this disinformation and the success that it's having these days, I wonder how much of that is tied to a distrust in government, period. And I could give you any number of examples. I don't need to do that because you're brilliant and you wrote the book. But my thesis is that if you don't trust the government, that anything the government says you find suspect. We live in a nation where people, as I've said many times, have moved from the category of being skeptical, which I think is healthy, to being cynical, which I think is dangerous. You echoed that point earlier in this conversation. But you don't. My point is you don't have to be a MAGA fan to have issues with what the government tells you. You know that old joke, the check's in the mail. That's what the government tells you. And even in real time, no joke here. During the pandemic, obviously, I understand that as you know more, you share more. As my big mama said, when you know better, you do better. So I understand. I'm willing to give the CDC and other health agencies a pass on telling us what they know when they know it. But a whole lot of people, you mentioned vaccines earlier, they don't trust these vaccines because the government kept changing its recommendations. So, I mean, I'll digress here. But if you don't trust the government, doesn't that make it easier for disinformation campaigns to work effectively?
Oh, absolutely. And so, I mean, there's reason for us to be suspicious of our government from time to time. I mean, the Tuskegee experiment with the syphilis study. I mean, people, that's absolutely legitimate reason to be concerned about what the government might be doing to certain people. We've had issues before where the government was engaged in all kinds of bad behavior. The Watergate scandal, the Pentagon Papers revealed that the government was lying to the public about our role in Vietnam. And so there are concerns. But I think we have to remember that we are the government. We are the people. And although there can be humans inside who are abusing their power, the way we solve problems is by coming together as a government. And so if we disbelieve everything the government says, then it's anarchy. It's all chaos. Like, why bother complying with the speed limit? Why bother refraining from shoplifting? If it's all just one big chaos, and we'll do whatever we want. So we have a system of laws. We have a system of rules. We also have watchdogs, and I think we need watchdogs in society, in a free press, and three branches of government that can serve as a check on each other. There are a number of things we can do to check our government to try to find out when they're abusing their power. But it is so dangerous to say we can't believe anything the government is saying because they are trying to harm us. Instead, I should believe this guy. Who are we believing? So scientists, doctors, people who are credible voices. I know in my own state, for election purposes, our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, who's a terrific public servant, is concerned about false information arising about the election that's coming up in 2024. And she knows that as the government, maybe she won't always be the most trusted voice. So she's trying to retain some ambassadors who will have credibility in the community. Maybe it's athletes, maybe it's prominent people. And so trying to find credible voices to help people work through and be a bridge to government, because it is an issue when people are, understandably skeptical of government.
Speaking of disinformation, when we come forward, by the way, her book is called Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. Two things come to mind immediately that I want to get Barbara's take on again when we come forward here in a moment. She made the point earlier that there really, there are two tracks here. There are these political threats to truth, and there are technological threats to truth. I think I can guess her answer, but I want to ask her, which is the greater threat, the political threat to truth or the technological threat to truth? We'll get her take on that. And she's talking about Donald Trump moments ago, and she raised the notion of black folk. I'm thinking of AI and the Trump campaign, literally generating fake AI photos of Donald Trump hanging out, hugging on, loving on black people. They're fake pictures. They're fake photos. They're created by AI. And so you can't talk, it seems to me, about disinformation into the future and not talk about the role that AI will play in that regard. More to talk to Barbara McQuaid about when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Lamert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm-fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties. Classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Tax Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. This tax season, you get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data and a new Samsung Galaxy A15 for just $99. So you can give your janky phone to your kid. Yeah! Good talk.
Switch to Straight Talk for plans starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Device offer ends 4/14/24. In-store activation on single Silver Unlimited plan or higher required. Family plan discount with 4 lines all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley in conversation with Barbara McQuaid, former U.S. attorney, with a provocative new text out right now called Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. What role is AI going to play in this process into the years to come? Barbara McQuaid, you heard me say moments ago, we were just kind of laughing about it, although it ain't funny, during the break, my staff here. These Donald Trump loving on black people photos are everywhere. It's AI generated. It ain't real, but it's out there.
Yeah, I think AI is an incredible tool, but also a powerful weapon, and I do worry about the way it can be used to influence people. So that simple example you gave, and I've seen those pictures with Donald Trump surrounded by a group of black women and then a group of black young men who look so happy to be with him. And it suggests that there are people in my community that like Donald Trump. Maybe I ought to reconsider. Maybe I ought to think about him. He is popular in this group. And so that is probably like the simplest example of just, creating an image that's not true. But I worry about other examples of AI that could be even worse. For example, we know that in New Hampshire this year in the primary, there were AI-generated robocalls that sounded like Joe Biden, complete with malarkey and all of his other little phrases, but urging voters to stay home from the polls. I'm sure many people received that call and thought it was true. Fairly non-consequential when it's a primary that's uncontested, but in other states, when in the general election, when that can make the difference in the outcome of an election, it could be really powerful. You could imagine AI-generated videos of a political candidate saying things he never said, doing things they never did. Yeah. We've seen AI-generated nudes of Taylor Swift. So it can create all kinds of havoc online. And so I think this is an incredibly powerful new tool that can be used in ways that I can't even imagine right now.
You had you've had many great lines in this one conversation, but you had a great line that jumped out at me a few minutes earlier in this conversation when you said that we live in a world now, in a society where people are choosing tribe over truth. I love that line, tribe over truth. It seems to me, though, that we are living in a country that's becoming more and more tribal. And when people become more tribal, they become more nativist. And when they become more nativist, they turn inward, and they don't believe anything they don't want to believe that isn't in their tribe. So my question is, if we're becoming more tribal, and your point in real time is that we're already choosing tribe over truth, you see where I'm going? I'm not sure it's going to get better before it gets worse.
Yes, and I do worry about that too, Tavis, that it could get worse. And so, I do have some proposed solutions in the book, and I think there are a couple things that I could suggest to people. I mean, some of it is doing some regulatory work online to eliminate some of the garbage that we see out there and some of this impersonation and some of the AI and political ads. I think there's some things we can do as a government. But I also think that we need to see the way we're being manipulated and to take back our power by demanding truth, and also to see each other for what we have in common as opposed to what we have different.
Yeah.
It's hard to hate up close. And so if you actually have a neighbor who is a member of a different group, or if you see in your faith community someone who's different from you, or in your labor union, or in your bowling league, or in your kids' sports team, or whatever it is, when you meet real people, it's much harder to believe that, they are the Antichrist and they want to destroy America and that they're these horrible people. You see that we all want the same things. We want a healthy, happy life. We want safety. We want a better life for our kids. We want prosperity. And when we see those things, we realize that we have the power to come together and that our unity is our strength. And so I hope that my book is just a little call to action to wake up, to demand truth, and to work together instead of allowing people to push us apart. My
exit question for Barbara McQuay when we come forward is simply this. Is our democracy destined for death by disinformation? And if so, what is the greater threat, the political disinformation or the technological disinformation? We'll talk about that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
I got about 3 minutes left here with Barbara McQuaid, former U.S. attorney, professor from practice at the University of Michigan Law School, MSNBC legal analyst, co-host of a very popular legal podcast. But her new book is called Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. So, Barbara McQuaid, is our democracy destined to die from disinformation?
Well, I worry that if left unchecked, that is a possibility as we go down this road and people start saying things like hostages and believe it and acting in accord with those things. But I don't think it has to be. There is the phrase that the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice, or is long but bends towards justice, but it doesn't bend by itself. And I think all of us have to take responsibility for our society and for our democracy. And I think that if we get out there and we demand truth and we don't accept alternative facts, then I think we have the power to save our democracy. But it's not going to happen by itself.
Yep. I think I can guess your answer. But there are these political threats. There are these technological threats. Both are as real as rain. How do you square those? How do you rate those two things?
I think they go hand in hand. I think they're twin. I think the political stuff is the substance, and the technology stuff is the process and the fuel that makes it go. And so I think that there are those who are exploiting technology to achieve their desired political end.
Yeah, there's so many things that I think that threaten our very democracy, and I oftentimes call it an experiment in democracy. We have a Madisonian framework for it. We're not quite there yet. But so many things threaten our democracy, from gerrymandering to poverty. And now I add to that list, thanks to Barbara McQuaid, disinformation. On a final note, I was tickled by this. Actually, maybe tickled is the wrong word. I was actually impressed by it. I'm reading books all the time, and I've written a few myself. And on the back of these books, as you all know, there are these blurbs. People blurb these books all the time. And so there are a number of blurbs connected to Barbara McQuaid's fine book, Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. Carol Anderson, on this program not long ago, is one of those persons who blurbed the book. There are a lot of great people on the back of the book. But when I saw Martina's name, I just kind of chuckled. Barbara McQuaid, that one came out of the blue. For those of you who are tennis lovers, you, of course, know Martina Navratilova. She has some powerful words on the back of this book. I thought that was pretty cool, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. She grew up behind the Iron Curtain and had to flee from communist authoritarian regime. So she's got some real insights on what life could be like without the freedoms that we sometimes take for granted.
Yep, Serena Williams, no question, is the GOAT. But Martina did her thing while she was playing. I'll leave it at that. But it was great to see her name on the book. Barbara McQuaid's book, once again, former U.S. attorney, is called Attack from Within: How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. I'm delighted in this conversation, Barbara. Thanks for coming on. We'll do it again.
Oh, thank you, Tavis. My pleasure.
All the best to you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Ron DeSantis has been wagging war on Black America. However, they say their recommendation is not